Hi guys, how are you guys doing today? I am going to try using tilting the camera horizontally, so I'm going to really try not to look over here at my face and instead look at the camera, but I apologize in advance if my eyes are kind of going back and forth. I'm getting used to this direction, but I think for uploading on YouTube it will be easier if I'm have it facing this direction. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about labeling and understanding a diagnosis or what we're going through. I think we've been doing a lot of talking about understanding what anxiety is and being able to put a label on it. And I think that there's really some big truth behind understanding what we're going through and being able to use words to describe it. I really hope that through all these videos I'm able to provide you guys with vocabulary that can help you describe what you're experiencing, so that when you explain it to someone else you can kind of be able to speak to it and explain what you're going through and understand it and have other people understand it in a way that makes sense to everyone. So if you are still struggling with that, I would encourage you to check back at my video where I talk about how to teach kids about anxiety. I think it's a really good way at understanding or explaining what's going on and how you can kind of talk about anxiety. But I also think that something that's been coming up a lot in sessions lately is people wanting to be understood. I think that there's this level of taboo still around anxiety, but also once we are able to explain it, still not feeling understood by it. And so kind of digging deeper into how do we feel understood? What about anxiety? What about having a label? What about having a diagnosis can help us be understood? In the professional field, in therapy, diagnosing is such an interesting thing because it sometimes people like to be put in that box, and some people really don't like being put in that box, and that a diagnosis doesn't define us. And I think for as professionals in this field, it's really helpful for us because we know what potential symptoms can go into that category. So if you have anxiety, I mean, there's hundreds of symptoms, there's hundreds of reasons why it could be happening, but it gives us a good understanding when talking to other professionals or when talking to clients about here's something that could be happening, here's the criteria you meet. That puts you in that category, but that doesn't mean you have everything. It doesn't mean it's all or nothing, and it doesn't mean it has to be used as an excuse for behaviors. I think one of the most dangerous things about a diagnosis, in my opinion, is using it as an excuse for why we have certain behaviors. Or if we have kids, they don't pay attention, or they threw a tantrum because they have ADHD. Well, yes, they do have ADHD, and yes, a symptom of that can be not paying attention, but there's also tools and ways we can teach them or teach families to work with them so that those symptoms don't necessarily have to happen. And so I think it can be sometimes risky to have that label when we can use it as a crutch or an excuse as to why we don't do something, especially with anxiety. Anxiety, as we've talked about a bunch of times, the biggest contributor to not succeeding when you have anxiety is avoidance and escaping, and excuses are another avoidance technique. Saying I can't do that because I have anxiety. That's not to say that it's a process and that you have to work through it. Of course, when we first start out, there's a lot we can't do frequently because of anxiety. It's debilitating. It keeps us from doing things. But it's also the most, we see the most progress quickest with anxiety because we're so uncomfortable, because we're sick of being anxious. We are motivated to do the things that I ask my clients to do, to not feel that way anymore. And it's scary and it's anxiety inducing, but we know, research has shown that when we do the thing that we don't want to do, instead of using it as an excuse, then we see a lot of progress. When we are afraid to do something that we know we have to do or is good for us, or that we need to do for a job or for a family or for friends, we we can't use it as an excuse. We are just holding ourselves back and keeping ourselves from doing the things we need to do. So, you know, I think the being transparent and understanding what our diagnosis is really important. I think for some people it makes sense. Things click. Like, I've had all these weird quirks and these tendencies, and I just can't really figure out why. I can't figure out what's causing it. And I think sometimes getting a diagnosis saying this is why this is happening can be so freeing and can get us to the level of acceptance so that we now can work towards our goals instead of feeling so confused as to why it's happening. So I think those are kind of the two sides of what can happen. We can either use it as an excuse, or we can use it to motivate us to understand ourselves better, to have language to describe what we're experiencing, and then we can push forward and thrive, really. And of course, I'm speaking in very general terms. This is every person and every experience is different. When I talk about these things, my hope is that you can pick a few things from it and use it, but I don't expect this to be fitting for everyone. I don't expect each scenario, each circumstance, each experience is so very different. So don't think that when I say something that it might all completely 100% apply to you. But my goal is that people can take little bits of this and use it and move forward to be living in their best self. So that was a little bit about what I wanted to talk about today. It was kind of a shorter video, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of potential diagnoses, why we use them in the medical field, and what we can do with the information when we have it. We can allow it to free us. We can allow it to motivate us to do the things we need to do. But please, please don't let it be an excuse as to why we have bad behaviors or behaviors that are harmful to ourselves or to others, or that keep us from reaching our goals and doing the things that we want to do in life. So that's it for today. Please comment below if you have any questions or concerns, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you.